It is time to engage. All right, and today we are back to having an Orville and a Discovery episode to compare, contrast, and figure out which one trekked it, which one wrecked it, or, as has happened a little bit this particular season, both wreck it, or both trek it. Yeah. This has happened. This has happened. Sonia, Kat, shall we dig into Saints of Imperfection, which is 205 for Discovery, and Deflectors, which is 207 for the Orville. So if you've not seen these episodes yet, here come the spoilers, or don't watch. So let's talk about the Orville, because there is a lot of pure Star Trek happening in this episode. It's emotional, it has high stakes, it's got a whodunit, which we've seen some exciting versions of on Star Trek in the past. In fact, Star Trek VI was entirely a whodunit, and we've got a matter of perspective, where Riker was on trial, and did he kill him? How did he kill him? Why did the death, like, what were the sort of meanings behind the death? And there was a lot of holographic recreation that happened there as well. So this is such a Star Trek episode in so many interesting ways. What did you think of Bortus's ex-boyfriend showing up?
I thought it was really awesome. Actually, okay, I'm not gonna lie. The first time I was like, another Bortus episode? What is happening?
3 in this season.
But then, you know what? I just sort of, it was also nice to see, what's her name? Tala?
Tala,
Thank you. I like to see her kind of like flexing her muscles a little bit in terms of getting her character, you know?
Well, and I mean, you have to assume this was written as an Alara episode before she left the show.
That's right, yeah.
And so they sort of hung a lantern on that in a neat way in this episode, when they're like, this has got to be the craziest thing that's ever happened on here. And then just listening to them list off what happened in season 1. Yeah, not the craziest thing, hon.
And they also, I mean, they did do the same thing of like a Selayan in the military. Like, yeah, it's okay.
And that was interesting. Sonia, what did you think about this idea that, unlike Alara's sort of system of my family are all scientists and they're brilliant and they think I'm dumb and here I am as the military version of, you know, a Selayan, she comes from a black sheep family of all military Selayans. What do you think about this, like, change to the Selayan security guard's perspective?
I thought it really worked in the scene. I thought they used it really well in that scene with Lokar, in that it connected them, and I found it certainly made her more interesting for me. You know, black sheep, always interesting characters, and they're just again, I thought they used it really well in the scene.
It was neat to see that kind of warrior race and an outcast warrior having that moment together. It was cool.
It was also weird. I mean, not weird, but it was also awesome to see them use not only like the heterosexual relationship be the one that was, you know, not appropriate, and in that kind of judgmental culture the Moclans have, and it was just so interesting. I love that spin, because it kind of just like, you don't know what you're seeing or why it's like, you really, you don't, it just suspends everything. I really thought it was wonderful in the way
it unfolded. Oh yeah,
the way I love the way they did that. I thought that was fantastic. And also just like, you know, I kept thinking initially like Clyden, I thought the story was going to go in the direction like Clyden is going to be the nice person who's like, come in and join us and be that, and I thought it was going to be another relationship focus. And then I was so shocked when the door opens and Clyden's there, and I was like, oh, he's going to say something nice, but actually then I don't, That's
well, and the fact that the Orville can sometimes feel like it's doing Star Trek by rote in a way that it will not surprise you. And so the fact that this episode first surprises you with Clyden being a killer, and then surprises you with him not being dead, there were a bunch of wonderful twists in this episode that I thought made it more sophisticated than just watching a 1988 episode of The Next Generation, because the audience has evolved. And so it's nice to see the twists and turns be more than just, hey, you remember this on Star Trek? And handing it to us on a 2019 platter.
I thought the writing of that scene at the dinner table, when they invite Lokar in, I thought that was really well written and unexpected. It was fantastic, especially because often on Discovery, I don't feel that way about the writing. But Seth MacFarlane has proven to be quite good at this.
And he's hired a writing team that is bringing to the table some really lovely stuff. In fact, the similarities I found were with Outcast initially. That episode from TNG when Riker is basically working with this person from an androgynous race, and then it's revealed that this androgynous character is more female, and that's frowned upon in her society. And it's interesting because that episode is essentially a tragedy because she undergoes the conversion therapy, and she becomes a non-gendered androgynous character again. But I was wondering where they were going to take it with Lokar. And again, we're at this brutal Moclan court.
No, yeah. What amazed me again, is just like jumping on the good writing note too, is that what I love is that the ethics is never just like an after school special. It's not like, okay, people, open your minds or whatever. It was like, and now can you still be, even though you can't reconcile the decisions that this culture is making, can you be open minded enough to respect that this is its culture and still like how do you proceed? In like an intergalactic kind of way where you have to work a lot with these people, and you also you love the Moclans, you love Bortus, you love Bortus. What I mean? How do you do this? And anyways, it was really interesting. Like it really challenges you.
And with Clyden as this like straight up conservative. In the sense of conservative Moclan culture, it's fascinating because Bortus has not only left the Moclans to work with humans, but brought his family along, and it was Clyden, if you remember from season 1, who was adamant that their daughter be turned into what is right, which is a male, into a son. And so that was a good jab in this episode as well. Playing Topa and who Topa is becoming is going to be fascinating, especially because Topa went from like this big to Moclans age how they age. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly, if we get like a Young and the Restless, and Topa's an 18-year-old now, like how quickly Topa becomes a man and what Topa feels about being an adult. And if the gender reassignment therapy works. Yeah,
it was really interesting. And I also like how they kind of introduce like other relationships. You have the Kelly and Ed kind of relationship is sort of another kind of perspective at the same time.
And what's going on with Cassius?
Oh my god.
What did you guys think of Bruce Willis as a talking plant?
Okay, I did. That's the funniest thing. That's pretty funny.
I mean, when you deliver a gift that just gets, first it's cookie bouquets, then it's a talking Bruce Willis bouquet. It was pretty hilarious to get that awesome, absurd, bizarre, I guess sentient flower.
Larger than life.
Yes. Yeah. So let's switch into another interesting forbidden love, I suppose, because the gods of season 1 killed off a character on Discovery, and the new gods of season 2 decided that was a mistake. Oops. Yeah. And it feels like there's another moment here where we're being apologized to for misstep in season 1, and our first ever out in love couple is no longer half dead. What do we think of the return and the reuniting of a sort of fan favorite character from season 1?
There are some things I love about it, absolutely. I loved seeing him again. I thought it was kind of interesting the way they delved into it with the mycelial network and that being its own kind of universe and that whole exploration there. Yeah. But I was also sort of like, what? I mean, I love Hugh. I love Stamets and Hugh together. I think they were adorable. Pardon me, very satisfying to see him kind of come back. But from a storyteller standpoint, I felt like it would have been more of a poignant kind of thing if he wasn't successful coming back. And I can't help but feel that. I just felt like, why did you do this? Now it's like a weird, now nothing happened. Now everything is, you know what I mean?
As he was reaching through that void and his hand disappeared, I thought, this is going to be brave storytelling.
And I actually started crying at that point. They really got me. I had so many feelings, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, but there's a solution? Oh, of course there is. And it just felt like a quick fix, like a weird sloppy kind of plot, you know,
even though this was essentially a three-parter
Yeah,
with this
yeah,
like
with this
story of
weird
what's
arc.
in me and where, oh, there she is, and now we've killed her, but no, she's here, and
the things too with Stamets, I loved that some of his most interesting character development happened after he was gone.
Yeah.
And dealing with that, and some of just like that depth of character that we see with him, it was almost like, yay, now it's all gone. It's gone. You know, like what? Yeah.
yeah. Speaking of like things that weren't discussed, the ganglia.
Oh,
Not
yeah,
a,
from
not
the
a thing
other
this
Yeah, it's
episode. It was
not-
just last
drop
episode
that.
was all
Yeah.
that mattered. It's like the serial versus episodic nature of this show is not.
It's not resolved. Yeah.
It's not really working out, and the feeling that this was a one-season show, that they are now like, oh shit, right? We had that gay couple. We better have them back. And oh shit, if we've got Saru unable to deal with anything that scares him, then that's going to be a problem. And it's like they're trying to find all the ways to make this into a show that can last more than one season when it was designed to be a show to last only one season.
And they keep adding things to it. They just keep filling it up too much. Like think about this. They've introduced Reno, who we
I
all think
love
is
her.
Yep.
fantastic.
Yes, love.
And I would have loved to see more Stamets and Reno. Like
Yeah.
that there was an
Yeah.
opportunity for that very enjoyable professional and personal relationship to develop. Okay, but now Hugh's back, and so we've got a very important relationship that we all love to watch. This is great. It just seems like there's too much happening, and we don't get enough. But I don't even know if it's too much. I don't know if they just don't know what to do with all that they have, because other Star Trek shows seem to have, they had big interesting casts, and we loved all their relationships, and they seem to have weaved them together in a much more satisfying way.
It's hard in the Game of Thrones, in the post Tony Soprano Game of Thrones world, where main characters can die at any moment. It's hard to show up with a strong ensemble cast and then have them be in danger and have us believe any of them will die, especially when they keep frigging coming back.
Yeah, exactly that. And I, again, it's, Michael Burnham making a sad, scared face drinking game over the last couple
during last
episodes.
episode, yeah.
And even just in this one too.
At the
it's
beginning
like,
of this one,
oh,
yeah.
no. And it's like, okay, look, we get it, okay? We get it. You played the Vulcan, character arc last season. Now you're trying to make her ultimately more human so that when she meets Spock, there's that nice distinction. But oh, come on. Like, I just feel like, again, like, I'm impatient. I'm getting impatient with the way they're writing. And you're absolutely right. I think we even talked about it earlier on this season on Track of the Wreck-It with like, they're telling stories to apologize and to sort of say, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, this was an inconsistency. My bad. Let me tell you why. And the thing is, like, okay, that's great. But at a certain point, a story is a story. Start telling the story. Stop apologizing for the narrative. Please.
If you take a look at some great episodes of Enterprise, where they decided to thread canon together with the augments and the Klingons.
I love that.
And like there were really beautiful moments of continuity porn that were also great stories.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're going to hang a lantern on some interesting inconsistency Star Trek has had, or an inconsistency you had last year, at least do it with something gorgeous that distracts us from the retcon that you're giving us.
Yeah.
And I feel like last week we were talking about how, oh man, when they catch up with Spock, I hope it delivers. They're gonna have to catch up with Spock. And then in this episode, they were like, okay, here's his shuttle. And Michelle Yeoh walks out.
Okay, can I please tell you guys something hilarious though?
Yeah.
Did you guys not think the Top Gun moment when that first thing, it's like, oh, she slammed her brakes on, we just drove right past her. And it's like, Tower, this is JoJo requesting a flyby. Like, what the hell? What was that?
It was a hilarious move.
That was...
And I think it's an interesting, it's interesting that last week we were talking about the thing they really had better be able to deliver on. And they made it worse this episode.
Yes, they did.
So, man, they had really, really better be able to deliver on it.
Two things. Michelle Yeoh is fantastic.
I love her,
As
yeah.
JoJo.
I'm liking her more, I gotta say. I was really underimpressed in season 1 with her. But now she's settling into a character I can almost believe.
Yeah, this episode I thought she was fantastic. Her bad attitude is so fun to watch. And I think she's being written really strongly in this character. You made me forget. Oh yeah. So one of the I went through a broad spectrum of emotion in this episode. So there was the excitement. Seriously, I was so excited. Oh my God, we're gonna see Spock. Well, we're gonna see Spock. We know what he looks like, but Spock and Michael, we're gonna see them together. And I love the way Captain Pike is dealing with with all of this.
Yeah.
And then, no. Okay. Okay, then I liked the way Captain Pike and Giorgio were, you know, kind of interacted. Okay, and he doesn't know everything. Okay, that's interesting. I don't know, then was it just right after that where she saw Ash? And then the mycelial network, which, as you both know, I find seriously boring as science.
Yep.
Now, the way that they introduced it and they played with it this time around was actually more interesting than in other episodes. I have to be honest.
Okay.
I even liked the production around, liked the visuals, some of the visuals around the mycelial, showing us with the mycelial network. And so that was kind of enjoyable. It wasn't completely boring, but
What did you think about the monster being Hugh? Did you have some other idea of what the monster was going to be? And were you surprised by it being Hugh?
I was kind of disappointed that it was Hugh. I was hoping that it would be something that would not be one of them. I really wanted a little bit... I wanted to be more abstract.
Did you have suspicions of what it might be?
No. I thought it would be some sort of inanimate... I guess not inanimate, but something organic, but not a human. I didn't want it to be that. I wanted it to be something else.
What did you think it might
Maybe
be?
I'm watching too much old Star Trek.
No. I honestly thought that it was going to be like an environmental statement. They'd already spent so much time saying like this destructive creature, and it's you. And they did the finger pointing, and then they're like, now we're going to steal Tilly to the world of mycelial wonder.
Well,
and then it's like there's this trail, and it's interesting, and they're going to be on the same team, and they're hunting, and I found it really bizarre that, okay, first of all, I still don't understand one thing, okay? I understand that there was like some genetic makeup, but that doesn't mean that they have to recreate and also then reanimate and give Hugh like sentient, like literally like, what the, he's not a lot, like...
There are two Hugh bodies, right? There's a body in a grave somewhere,
right,
or like floating around in a torpedo tube. And there's this other one that the mycelial network made.
Right, but then are they saying that they made it off of the love? Like, what are they saying?
I feel like they had to twist. I feel like they had to twist.
You could feel it cranking. You could really feel it cranking, trying to explain how there's another Hugh.
Yes.
But there's the other thing too. If they made him, then they would have known that they made him. That it wasn't like something that came in after the Discovery was like in there doing its jumps.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. Now, again, part of me is like, oh my gosh, yay, it's you! And part of me is just like, why this is...
I wonder what they could have done if they had left Tilly and May there to work through the problem in the network.
Yeah.
With those visuals and with that science.
Yeah, it was cool to see those visuals again, because we saw the two Stamets chatting in that space once, and then we've kind of not seen it since. And so this chance to give it to us again and have Tilly be there. And the fact that the mycelial network seems to be a place where humans can breathe is curious.
That also, there was, for as much as they explained the physics of it, they didn't explain the physics of it. Like,
and they didn't explain proximity.
No.
Like, how big is the mycelial network, and how is it that Discovery jumped and then they were right there?
Well, the other thing, too,
none
is
of that made sense.
They were like, you got to stay away from the areas where the mycelial network is there because there's this wall and they're
or you
like,
get splinted.
Yeah, like totally. And then it's like, oh, hi, Tilly. Hi, guys. Hugs. Like, wait, aren't you in the... I'm very confused at this moment.
Yeah.
You didn't...
And like the entire crew complement of the Glen was splinched and turned into horrible, like, dead body gore in season 1. And somehow not a single person was hurt, as far as we know, in this scenario, because they all knew to stay away from the wall.
And because Ash Tyler made his heroic evil dentist outfit jump and say, guys, evil dentists.
Can we also talk about how everybody can go, I'm with these guys?
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, Section 31, right, Section 31.
Right.
It's like, this isn't the CIA.
Yeah.
No.
This isn't like, I'm just with the FBI, no big deal. It's, I'm with the organization nobody's supposed to know about. Holy shit, guys.
It was, it was a little, and also the whole communicator thing.
So,
I'm going to talk to the other side of the known universe.
And
like,
so
it was a little ridiculous.
How many years before everybody else gets to use it? 100? 110 years?
It's more.
So Section 31 is the only one who gets to use it.
And they just keep that quiet. They're not an R&D department.
No.
They're just spies.
Yeah, and apparently they still have to be like, talk to like children, which is really the thing with the Admiral.
Well, look at the way they recruit people. Like, they just find people and they're like, you're in. Leland, who knows? He could have just been like smoking in the boys' room and they decided, you're badass, let's hire you. Like, none of these people seem to be appropriately trained for this work.
Well, the funny thing is that they make it so clear that they like point out like how they screwed up and became part of it. It's like, oh, you know, well, I'm better than that guy that ambassador that you just talked to horribly the other time. Remember they like actually point
that guy
out,
you killed by accident?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, sorry.
Information we don't even need. We don't even need that piece of information there. And I found just also when they were trying to get out of the mycelial network, they were trying to deal with Hugh. Too much talking.
Oh my God.
People are gonna die. Really.
There were like 3 distinct moments where there was like some discussion, some chowder spout of my feelings here, and it's like everyone's dying right now.
Yeah.
Instead of you just getting back to where you need to be. And this idea that you could like walk through the cube and everything was okay through there, even though the rest of Discovery is sinking into here, engineering is somehow perfectly split down the middle.
And here's the other thing, guys. Here's the thing. Hugh knew the whole thing of him driving the ship, the mycelial network. He would have not been like, oh, wait, what is this room I must mine now? You know what I mean? Like, I don't. He knew. So what? Why would
was
they
he
explain
afraid? Like, it
Did
just
they
didn't
have
make
to
sense.
explain? It was just this like lovely moment of exposition to kill time. And the other thing too, how powerful would it have been? How powerful if they ran, and you know how he talks about like holding his hand behind him? Like, what if
We
just
saw
putting this
more
out
of
there, what if
that.
we just saw Stamets running like this and we assume that everything's going to be okay, and then it's gone.
It would have been
and
fascinating.
it's just gone.
Yeah.
I'm getting, not that I,
You just wrote a better episode. Yeah.
Or the other thing too, it's like, you know, like the thing, like the John Carpenter's thing, biological transport things.
Oh my God.
That was the
like,
first horror movie I ever saw.
Oh yeah,
Isn't it great?
you got to see it again.
Yeah, you know, I mean, and yes, the angry
Production design of this is fascinating because they physically had to build this like H.G. Geiger-esque looking
it's very,
alien thing,
very.
and that is supposed to somehow be representative of a fungal mycelial network thing. And the mycelial network looks nothing like that.
No, and also they can like go from Tinkerbell little glowing rice, you know, pellets to humans to make people feel comfortable, but they have to put the Geiger uterus thing there on the floor. That's what they. I didn't understand that either. I didn't understand. Also, Sorry,
Say it, come on.
No, I just still don't understand why they had to spend so much time in the last 2 episodes like establishing that thing on the floor. If they weren't going to use it or play, you know, they weren't actually They just say in that harrowing moment before Discovery like was pulled out that wait, we can use those things because it's, you know, it's human and let's use it at their side, and then
poof. Yeah.
Like, I don't understand. I'm sorry.
There were a lot of things in this episode that were difficult to wrap our heads around, but I feel like one of the things that is consistently confusing me is this Sex and the City monologue that begins and ends episodes, because I can't tell what it is. Is it her internal thoughts, or is this like Commander's log, Stardate, blah, blah, blah?
Yes.
Because we're on Star Trek, and on Star Trek there is a mechanism for internal monologue called your Starlog. And it would make sense for the Commander to have one. Or, you know, second or third or fourth first officer, whatever she is, because this is still not clear. But I feel like her waxing poetic could really use a box to sit in that isn't just like, here's my feelings, audience. And
they're not very powerful. This episode, I didn't find her words very powerful, actually. They were a little better last episode.
They handed the best lines to Pike.
Yes,
when he was like, listen, everybody, Starfleet is an agreement, and he goes into that, and it was beautiful. And, like, why is that not how she's speaking? She's speaking about her feelings, and Pike is speaking about the Federation and Starfleet, and I feel like there really should be a little bit more of that.
Yeah, from Michael.
From Michael.
She's the main character. She's the one we're supposed to.
It shifts the seat of power, and it really bothers me because, as I think I mentioned this earlier too in another episode, but I really enjoy seeing these strong, independent women, you know, be in that power spotlight, and I like seeing them step into that role, and to have something like this, which again, yes, I understand you're trying to humanize her, you know, and give her that more emotive arc this season, I guess. But again, do we have to be so like where are all of her incredible observations about strategy and about the future and what's going to happen? You know, she's not a strategist anymore.
Why does someone who's trained on Vulcan cry so damn much?
That's what I mean. Exactly, right? Like, it's not...
And it's weird because I feel like in season 1, Michael was very stoic, and it was almost to the point that Sonika's like performance felt stilted because she was not Vulcan, but she was being Vulcan. And in this season, I feel like they cranked it the other way, where she's allowed to be angry and cry, and like she's performing, and we're going to see more of her range. But it feels like this character is not nailed down. She feels kind of unstable.
Yes.
And I don't think that's intentional.
No, okay.
I mean, maybe it is. Maybe she's gonna go bonkers. Maybe she's gonna just completely lose it. And maybe there's some explanation of how Spock mind melded with her to help her like strip away her emotion. Like maybe there's some explanation, and her emotions are gonna come to the forefront as part of the story. But right now, it kind of just feels like new showrunners are giving her a different side.
Different take. Yeah. That's, I think, my biggest sort of problem is this season especially. I don't know if things are intentional. I don't know if, again, it's just another apology that people are issuing because of this last season. I don't know. Or I don't know if it's actually like leading to somewhere relevant, you know? And that kind of upsets me. It really does. I mean, it's much like just in comparing it to Orville, Orville is so much cleaner. Even if an episode of Orville wrecks it for me, it's still like super clean cut. I know exactly what's happening. And that's part of the joy for me of watching Star Trek. I know, the parameters are already discussed, you know, like, in a way.
And are we excited to see more of Leland in Section 31? Do we think that Leland has a boss we're going to meet that is holding this together more? Or do we think
Giorgio's going to try and take over? I feel like Section 31 doesn't... I was irritated by that. I thought, oh, God, everywhere she goes, she destabilizes, and there's already so much happening. I didn't enjoy that storyline, actually.
Here's the thing, too. How can you be part of Section 31 and hire somebody to work for you and not know that she's like the dark
I think he
universe?
does.
I think they do.
He does.
And the strange thing about this is it's turning into Suicide Squad. Like when you look at Section 31 with William Sadler's character in DS9, he is like a complete psycho, but he is so clean and crisp, and his intentions are very clear, and he's very he does everything without a trace, and it's brilliant. And in fact, they were able to beam in and out of a location from a distance people couldn't even wrap their heads around how he arrived on the station. So there is some cool technology that Section 31 has, but it has always felt less like cowboys and more like Navy SEALs.
Yes.
Yes,
And
exactly.
so showing up with a guy who's maybe a Klingon and maybe a human, and a woman who's definitely from another dimension and completely untrustworthy, and then knowing that Leland is as like fly by the seat of his pants and cuckoo bing bong as he is, it's like, this is a terrible team to have as Section 31.
Yes.
And even in Enterprise, Section 31 was crisper and more hidden than this. And so it's strange to see that during the original series, Section 31 is just like nut bars who hide inside of holographic asteroids, and then they get crisper in 100 years. It's a very strange like dip into the story we want to tell, and use Section 31 in a way that isn't really consistent with canon. But as we've learned, there are 3 timelines now in Star Trek. There's Star Trek as it existed before J.J. Abrams stepped in. So that's Enterprise and the original series and TNG and Voyager and DS9, and all of those exist in this CBS license, the Viacom license. And then there's the Prime timeline and the Kelvin timeline that were invented by J.J. Abrams and Alex Kurtzman, and that's on a Paramount only license. And so all of this does not exist with TNG. It exists over here in this Prime and Kelvin timeline, and that's why none of this looks like it should. It's also why none of this feels like it should, because Kurtzman doesn't know how to make this, and it's very clear that he doesn't want to make this. And it drives me nuts, and I've complained, I think, every episode, but this weird letterboxing that's going on to make it feel even more cinematic is just reminding me how this is a Star Trek movie, not a Star Trek episode.
So, you know what's funny? I'm going to say something because not only I talk about every time that I'm here is that I feel like every change or shift that they make, whether it's production design or, as you said, format or whatever, feels like it's a marketing grab. I feel like people are like, guess what, guys? New stats in. Most people are watching things on their phones. So I think we're going to change the format. You know, let's just do this. Okay. Like, because it makes sense in that respect. But then I'm like, why are you doing this? Don't make this up. Again, stop apologizing. Stop. Like, if you're going to make something completely different over here and you're going to separate it and you're going to say, no, guess what? It's not canon. Deal with it. Then have a backbone and introduce it and just go with it. Yeah. But don't.
And I mean, this show is a web series.
Yeah.
It's a web series, which means people are watching it on something roughly 16:9. Nobody is watching this in CinemaScope.
Yeah.
So there's really no reason to be wasting space on my iPad at the top and bottom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Referring back to your comments about Section 31 and with the kind of crazy team that they felt. When I saw Ash walk onto the bridge, I actually felt fear. I thought, that's a threat. And I thought, what is it about the bridge on Discovery that makes it feel so insecure all the time?
I don't know, the fact that you can fall down the stairs really easily?
Yes.
Poor Pike with his wipeout.
A couple of them. But not just physically when they are being thrown about, but I just feel like that bridge is always at risk of being of a mutiny happening or being overthrown. And that is something different from what I'm used to. And I'm not saying, I mean, maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe it's there to contribute to our sense that, you know, when these explorers in the beginning, the Federation was not as strong. Obviously, it got stronger. I mean, it had its dips, right? Its wars, its everything. But in the beginning, it wasn't as strong, and they were still feeling their way around. But I always expect something bad is going to happen. So every time.
And that's never been the case in Star Trek. When Gene Roddenberry set out to make Star Trek, it was always external forces of agitation and antagonism, not internal forces. And this show has got us feeling like, oh no, anyone could mutiny. Oh no, anyone on this ship could be from another dimension and want to destroy everyone. Like, there's something internal and threatening that doesn't happen on, say, the Orville. But the interesting thing about what they were saying this episode on the Orville was how long can a treaty, can peace with the Moclans last?
Right.
And so it really begs the question on the Orville, is the Union as strong as the Federation? And if it's not, because we've seen the Klingons splinter away from the Federation during Deep Space Nine and then join to attack DS9 itself and then reconsider and come back, mostly because there was a changeling Martok, but still, there was a lot going on there that is that I think we're seeing an echo of happen now with the Moclans. And I wonder if the Union will have to deal with a war on two fronts if the Moclans have an untenable peace with the Union and the Krill are still attacking them. Then we might find the Orville get into a more dangerous place, because it feels pretty safe, the Orville.
The Orville does. Maybe it's because it's carpeted. I always guess. No, I was really
Carpeting
thinking
goes a
about it.
long
I was
way.
like, I think it's because it's carpeted. It's like, you know, just there's something nice and homey about it. Oh, there's plants too. Have you guys noticed that?
Yes,
They're
the plants are
so
nice.
cute.
Those have got to be like nailed down, because
I think so.
every now and again you're hit by a Moclan, death ray.
Yeah.
I love that moment when they got hit with a torpedo. They're like, you were there, right? No torpedoes?
Yeah.
That was very fun to watch basically the Klingons get a little out of hand with their attack.
That was really cute.
What did you guys think of in the Orville when they were essentially like turbocharging the technology? And what did you think of the production design of it? Because there's an element of familiarity in not really an LCARS interface, but at least like it feels like it's not actually CGI all the time.
Right.
Whereas on Discovery, it feels like they're specifically throwing in our face the fact that a lot of this is a real display. And then someone will make a motion and then a holographic thing appears. What do you guys think about the production design of Season 2 in Discovery, where they're like trying to get away from the hologram a bit, and what we're getting from the Orville. What feels Trekkie to you guys?
Honestly, like Orville has always felt more sort of TNG to me, like all the way through, even just the console design and even the outline of the actual hull of the ship and everything. Yeah. It's like, oh look, it's so that to me just makes me happy, you know. And I think you're right. I think they've on Discovery. I feel like they're trying to kind of reestablish that kind of in a bald-faced way too, with the whole like, knew there was something wrong with those holograms. Remember that? It's like pretty funny. But the fact is that I think that they're, again, to me, I'm going to keep saying this, it feels like an apology. It feels like, okay, fans, you were right, you know, as opposed to like, hey, this just makes sense, you know? So I think, again, a lot of it has to do with just the way it's presented, and I like the Orville. The Orville just feels way more safe, happy, good.
What about you? What do you think of the look of where we're at right now? What do you think of the look of the Mocklin ship? Because I think it's one of the first time we've gotten to see both of them beside each other and trying to function in a dogfight together. Because there's a decision in Star Trek that all ships have nacelles if they're warp capable, and this like quantum engine doesn't exactly look like that's what's on the back of the Mocklin ship. Did it feel like it was inside the same design aesthetic to you?
It did to me, because the Mocklin ship reminded me of other ships that the Enterprise and Voyager and all engaged with. They always look to me less advanced, less sleek. You know, there's less attractive. Yeah. Maybe it's done on purpose. I don't know. But so it was reminiscent of those other ones, and I just kind of took it for granted that the power was somewhere in there.
That it worked somehow.
Yeah, it worked somehow.
It's like the Ferengi ship.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought of.
I guess there's nacelles in there somewhere. I guess they're line of sight. Okay.
To me, it just looked like a weird. Like it kind of looks not like a pine cone, a little bit like fecally. I don't want to say like
like a big old poop.
Yeah. But it was weird. But then I rationalized it with, oh, okay, well they're so advanced, like they're helping, you know, that this is just their aesthetic, and they have found a way to just like go beyond functionality to, you know, incorporate their poo-poo aesthetic.
That's right, and the lack of aesthetic it doesn't always indicate the lack of power, lack of innovation.
Yeah. Well, Mocklins are all like. They like brown, and they like orange. That seems to be like where they play in these rust tones, and so the design of it feels right. But yeah, it's a little poopy shaped.
A little bit poopy.
Yeah.
Can I go back to the bridge? I'm obsessed.
Oh yeah.
With the bridge and the design.
With Discovery's bridge.
Yeah, it looks like a dance club, and that's why I find it hard to take seriously.
On the disco.
I mean, I like to dance.
Yeah.
House music. But I don't. I can't. Get comfortable with it.
It's also enormous.
Yeah.
It's oddly huge. And I think it's interesting that on the Orville, they've been able to get away with this giant window out the front of their ship, and then when they have to have a conversation with someone out there, you see, bloop, like picture-in-picture pops up, and there's a Mocklin chatting with you, and then it goes away. And I just think being able to pick the best of both worlds, really, from Star Trek aesthetic and what they want to do. There's so much more freedom on the Orville to do that.
Yeah.
Because they're still just telling us what a quantum engine looks like. And they've shown us the odd Union ship that has 2 rings that we just assume goes slower or doesn't go as far or something, because there's not 60 years of science or pseudoscience around it, so we're like, yeah, okay, I guess I'll take it.
You know what though? There's also not like 60 minutes of exposition about it, or and
it just goes.
And
it's like the FTL engine in Battlestar Galactica. You're like, it's gonna go faster than light. Deal with it.
Yeah.
And now we're over there.
And it's interesting because in Discovery, like I like some of the props. I really do. I think they're beautifully made. You know what I mean, and stuff like that. It's not that. It's just on that side of the world. It's just completely different. It's just, sorry, my brain just went.
It's okay. It's all right.
I was so passionate there for a second. I forgot what I was saying.
Well, and it's funny because the Shenzhou bridge has been converted into the bridge for the Section 31 ship. And so a lot of the old lines from a Star Trek, like, garbage scow, basically, because that ship was so old, is exactly the way Section 31's ship looks. So it begs the question, is it an old ship that they've like tricked out, or is it a brand new ship that they just didn't have the production budget to build a new bridge for? So I'm curious about that. This sort of like submarine style multi-floor CIC, almost like in Battlestar, where you've got these different areas that can all look down on each other, and they're not really being used that way. It's just the space they have. What did you guys think of the moment when the Admiral sort of scolded Pike and scolded Leland, and they like had to make up?
Yeah, that's that weird like I'm gonna chide you, and then you're gonna act like two little boys. And for me, I was like, don't do that to Pike. Don't put him in this position, because it made him look like, oh, okay, Leland.
I guess your job is hard.
Like, seriously, and like, again, okay, thank you guys. Thank you for that much needed exposition. I'm sorry, is Section 31 different from Starfleet? What? Hold on. It's pig will and pig won't. Like, I don't it really made me kind of roll my eyes, yeah.
Did you get an eye roll moment out of that?
Yes.
Makeup, fellas?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I did. I have to agree. And I feel Leland, maybe they're doing it on purpose, but he's not scary.
No.
He's not scary. He doesn't seem authoritative. He doesn't seem like he could do damage in the name of the Federation. You know, that like you expect that from Section 31. You know, we all have a love-hate relationship with intelligence.
That they do things that are not accountable, but they do things that are occasionally deemed necessary.
Yes.
Is an interesting push and pull. But I gotta say, nobody in Starfleet intelligence seems very intelligent.
That's exactly the problem. That's the problem. That, and also, I'm sorry, but those dentist outfits. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, evil dentist or like evil chef.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Evil chef is even better.
Yeah.
Can I say the one thing I miss on both shows?
Yeah.
And I do understand why it's probably not on Discovery, and even the Orville. I miss a place like 10 Forward or Quarks. I miss those moments. That there was a lot of great stuff that happened in those places, and maybe that
Hopefully
could make
Jason
a difference.
Alexander comes back to be our bartender.
Yeah.
Because those moments in that sort of mess, in that mess hall, are pretty lovely. And they've been very fleeting. But those moments are fun. And it is sad that on Discovery there's no place like that. But it's appropriate, because the Next Generation was the first time we really got to see like a club that you could hang out in and get a nice drink. It's just like the Replimat is where you would go to get food handed to you from a shelf. And so it's interesting that we do feel like we're missing that. But it's kind of there on the Orville.
They had the small rave.
Yes,
Season 1. That's right.
The rave. I forgot about the disco
on the bridge.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The quantum time loop disco.
That was a good one.
That was
God, in the Replimat.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because that's where you go.
Yeah. Have a good
Some
party.
stomping tunes.
Yeah.
And,
oh man. All right, guys. Let's get down to the brutal part of the show when we talk about what trekked it and what wrecked it. So, Kat, did the Orville trek it or wreck it for you today, this particular week?
I am going to say that because of the complexity of the ethics and the way they were just like, they had so much integrity to the plot, and it was super clean, and it really kind of stirred me up. But it was all very, very Trek worthy for me.
Okay.
I'm going to say it trekked it. I'm going to say
All right. The Orville, trekked it or wrecked it? What do you think, Sonia?
Trekked it.
Yeah.
And I think because of moral ambiguity, I love the way that Bortus responded. I think the writing on this was actually better than a lot of Star Trek episodes I've seen, and I've seen a lot of them. Really excellent. And I like that it ended in a way that Star Trek, it didn't end as neatly as Star Trek often ended, but it still worked. It's still cohesive.
I agree. I think this episode of the Orville trekked it because it was beautiful. Like it played with technology. It played with problems we have now and gave us a really neat lens to see it through. To say, oh no, that's wrong. And then if you feel like that's wrong, what things in life are you saying are okay that actually maybe are wrong. It was a really beautiful way to look at, to lens our own problems, and that's what Star Trek is all about. Star Trek's a philosophy show couched in science fiction, and I think it nailed it. So by that token, Discovery, trekked it or wrecked it?
Okay, I had very high hopes. I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was kind of interesting the way they explored the two worlds, and also the sort of cause and effect layered in with the, you know, who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. But then it took this really weird turn, and I just feel like, again, too much was going on too many levels. And as much as I wanted Hugh to come back, and I liked that element, I'm gonna have to say it just wrecked it for me. It so wrecked it. Unfortunately.
Sonia, what do you think?
Same with me.
Yeah?
Yeah, it wrecked it. It wrecked it because there was too much going on, because they continue with science that's not interesting to me, because the characters, I feel, are not, there's too much, they're too indistinct, you know, and because the competency that we have to talk about, that we look for, and there's sort of the rigor around the roles and the Federation, it's everywhere. It's a mess, and I just couldn't really latch onto anything in this episode.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Now this is going to be weird, because I do not think this episode was good television. However, I feel like it was Star Trek. Now, I feel like it was Star Trek because we have hope. And I was worried that it was going to be, that the monster was just going to be Discovery. And it's like it was going to be, oh no, you shouldn't drive this thing through here because your ship's a monster. But I felt like this is a course correction back towards Star Trek. And season 1 of Discovery was a huge disappointment. There were maybe 3 hours of that show that I would ever tell someone they should watch. Season 2 so far has been like ticking off the boxes of the mistakes they've made. And so in an effort to not hold them accountable for the complete disaster of making this show in the first place, I'm going to say this episode trekked it, because we're getting closer to what Star Trek is, because Section 31 is the thing, and they're playing it in a way they wish to play it. And giving the holographic technology to Section 31 and keeping it a bit separate from the conversations they're having with the rest of Starfleet is satisfying my attempt to watch this, try to be canon, even though it is not. And I feel like there's something about watching characters reunite and watching essentially First Contact go horribly wrong, but come around in the end. That makes it feel like a bit more hopeful. And Discovery has had a lot of hopelessness. It's been dark, it's been stupid, it's been not Star Trek, but this was not dark and stupid. It was plenty stupid. But it was not, it was hopeful and stupid. It was stupidly hopeful, in fact. And I think that's sort of a beautiful Trek thing. Bad Star Trek does this. And I think this was bad television, but it was Star Trek.
That's awesome, man.
I think that's the first time. Is that the first time you've trekked something?
It might be. Yeah, it might be. I'm very rarely defending Discovery, and honestly, I think if I never have to watch an episode of Discovery this bad again, it'll be too soon. But if we have to keep doing this a bit to get to maybe a good third season of Discovery, I could be along for the ride. I personally don't watch a ton of season 2 of Voyager.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting.
I don't watch season 2 of... I watch some season... Because Pulaski's wicked, so season 2 of TNG.
That was pretty
loved her.
She's like the greatest part about that. And Riker's like baby beard that he's trying to grow. He's not quite there yet. And then season 2 of DS9 is pretty friggin' slow.
Yeah.
You know, I don't watch a lot of season 2 of anything but the original series. And I think they're trying to find it. And if Alex Kurtzman finds it, I'll be shocked. Because that guy doesn't know Star Trek from a hole in the ground. But Maybe he'll have writers, maybe Jonathan Frakes, maybe these people who bring Star Trek to the table.
I love Jonathan Frakes directing Discovery. I
Yeah,
think that it's
New Eden
beautiful.
was amazing.
Oh my gosh, so good.
I agree with
you
that.
know?
It was one of the better season 2 Star Trek episodes ever made.
Yeah.
And that's freaking weird. So I think this Discovery could get to a place where it's convincingly Star Trek. And in an inside baseball scenario, if Viacom winds up reuniting Paramount and CBS, they might be able to clean the license up and start showing us real Star Trek again.
That would be cool.
And I hope they're able to do this in time for the Picard show to not feel like it's happening in the wrong timeline. Because as it stands right now, it would be happening in the Prime timeline, not canon. And that's not where it's supposed to happen.
No way.
They'll be able to skirt it by saying it's 20 years in the future, things look different, but it's still going to look like Kurtzman hit it with a bag of what the fuck. And that's what's going on, and I'm not liking it. All right, so next week we have a new Orville and a new Discovery, and the interesting thing is it's a part 1 of 2 Orville episode.
Ooh.
So we'll see what that is all about. We don't get a whole lot of that. So that's going to be exciting. We are looking forward to hearing what you think in the comments about these 2 episodes. And do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us entirely? Or do you kind of, sort of see where we're coming from? Let's figure it out. And we'll see you again next week.